Hello, hello. Here I
There
am,
we are.
back in here again. Sorry, I'm just having a little bit of problem with my hearing here, but I'm sure we'll get there in the end. How's things?
Will it help if I speak louder?
Perfect. I've got you loud and clear. Almost too loud, but loud and clear. Thank you, Justin. How are you? Haven't seen you for a little while. Are things well over that side of the studio?
It feels like it's been almost exactly 2 weeks, doesn't it? Things are great over in this side of the studio,
Great.
with us a mere feet from one another.
That's
Meters.
it. I know. Some people have even been commenting that potentially this might be a fake CGI studio. How dare you? How very dare you come over here and see this lovely studio? Except you can't because you don't know where it is. Why don't we do some news? Was that dramatic enough? That dramatic
I
enough
love
for
the
you?
news thing. It is my favorite part of the show every week.
Do you want to hear it again? No, you can't have it too many times. Video conferencing platforms are leading to more support tickets. Now, this is a really good one. This talks about the sudden surge of video conferencing usage that has obviously happened over the recent past. And it's caused an awful lot of extra support tickets to be raised with IT departments, over half of which relating to what we call UCC. And if you see that acronym about, UCC is Unified Communications and Collaboration. So it's the typical video conferencing and collaboration apps that people have been using. And there's some interesting stats along here. I mean, it is a survey, so it's not really telling people what to do, it's just giving you some findings. And I found one of those findings very interesting, that Microsoft Teams seemed to be favoured by the IT leaders. The IT leaders' preferred platform with about 43% of the vote. Did you see that, JK?
I noticed that. And yet it also said that very large companies, I think it's over 10 billion in revenue is how they define that, prefer Zoom. I wondered if that speaks to, I don't know that you have to be $10 billion for this, but I feel like there's a stratification where the largest companies are those who have dedicated AV departments, right? Whether that's a part of the IT group or separate from it. These are organizations large enough to have specialists, like many in our audience, dedicated to that AV user experience. I wonder if that's who's preferring Zoom. And then the medium and smaller organizations, who there are many of, who may not have dedicated AV staff on call, are the ones with the IT department leading, and those are the organizations that at an organization level prefer Teams. I don't know if that's the case. They didn't delve into it, but it jumped out to me to wonder that.
We use Zoom in my company, and I've been checking my P&L every day, and I can't. It's disappointing. It's not over 10 billion, but we'll keep trying. We'll keep checking every day. Interesting. Lots of support teams field tickets about poor audio and video quality on calls, poor delays, inability to log into certain house services, which I thought was quite interesting. It kind of brings it back to our world, and the importance of having crystal clear audio video. Latency isn't a thing. I mean, you've got to get over these things. These apps will remain critical for organisations, but there obviously are still challenges presented to both end users and IT people.
Well, and what it touched on for me, and you just almost got there, is this is a show about the interaction between an AV team and an IT team. And I think this space, UCC, is exactly where it's kind of the leading edge of that collision these days, right? These ticketing systems that we're talking about here, the people responding to this survey are IT teams, essentially managing user support. That's grown out of desktop support and network support. Now there's UCC support, and I think the successful teams are the ones doing a good job of integrating the AV function and the IT function, which is, UCC is exactly half and half of each.
And that is a good segue. A great segue to our next piece, AT. Oh my goodness me, people, I do apologise. I seem to have dropped my words all over the place. AV and IT must collaborate for successful IP network convergence. This is from our old industry buddy, John Henkel. If you're out there, John, thank you for this. And thank you for being with us tonight, this afternoon, nearly. He explains how AV and IT teams can work together or need to work together for more efficient AV over IP network deployments. This is a real piece about convergence, JK.
Yeah, yeah. And to me, it breaks down into three kind of easy steps. I mean, it's easy to distill anything, and the devil's in the details. But first, it was to me about let's speak the same language, right? AV folks can be experts in AV, and IT can be experts in IT, but let's find the common ways to communicate about the needs of the user. Then let's work together to make sure we're planning these systems from a user experience perspective as well as a network performance perspective. And then finally, at the end of the article, he talks about joint ownership, right, and needing to be very clear about who owns which part of the system, who's responsible for the maintenance of what, and for the support of what. And I think with those steps in mind, we'll hear from Tom if he agrees. But with those steps in mind, that's how you have successful rollout of today's AV systems, which are IT systems ultimately.
Do you know what? You're right, but I take that a bit further. It challenges the concept of us and them, and quite rightly. I think the collaboration, we talk about convergence, there is going to be an awful lot of cross-pollination here. It's not entirely which bits of it are your responsibility and which bits are ours. I think John's trying to get rid of this us and them potential of somebody saying, well, is that your part of the AV network that broke? I've said this all along, being an educator. AV people, AV guys, you need to know your onions when it comes to IT. It's as simple as that. There's no shortcuts here. Convergence, true convergence of networks, and of course we'll hear from Tom, but true convergence of networks means that people need to know each other's stuff and be cognizant of each other's arena so that they can support each other. That's convergence. It's not just the technical convergence. It's the mindshare convergence and the skills convergence as well. And I love John's reference at the end to joint custody. I think it's a horrible phrase, of course, but it's a good phrase. It makes you remember it, that the AV and IT, if I say that again, you must kick me. Both owning the network and both taking responsibility.